Hey guys, welcome to another of my videos where I use exposure therapy to help treat my choking phobia. So first off, happy Pride. Enjoy. I hope you and your family and your loved ones are having a happy Pride, a Pride full of love and peace and happiness for everyone and for everybody. All right, now I'm going to move on to what I want to talk about today, which is depression. Now, depression I've talked about a lot. I think I've made at least one video specifically about depression. And what I want to talk about specifically now is, in commemoration of Pride Month, is how one's coming out experience, specifically my coming out experience, was related to, and continues to be related to a certain degree, depression, right? How one's coming out can lead to depression. So, first thing you understand is, statistically, I don't know exactly the numbers. There's a lot, though, high numbers of bi, trans, lesbian, gay teenagers who, upon coming out or discovering their sexuality, engage in unfortunately suicide, self-harm behaviors, and suffer from a ton of mental disorders, mental health problems that they need help from. I think one of the main things that, in my experience, when I came out when I was 22, was just first of all, where I live, in a lot of traditional families from the old world, they don't talk a lot about therapy or mental health. Those aren't words you would hear from exactly your parent, for example, your parents or your priest or anybody who's like a cultural normative, you know what I mean, person who helps you understand your own culture. They wouldn't be talked about. It'd be seen as not discussed, and you can just kind of grin and bear, kind of get through it. There wasn't much in the way of sympathy and empathy amongst peers who are suffering. So that's obviously true with my combat experience as well, since I come from a Pakistani background, and it was quite hurtful to see people invalidate your existence. And that's what it is, really. It's when people say, for example, things that are hurtful or homophobic, what they're basically saying is invalidating your existence, and that hurts. Because every time someone invalidates your existence, it hurts. And these are things that people who are, on the in the LGBTQ2S community face on a daily basis. This, homophobia and transphobia and all of that. So, it's good to engage in healthy self-talk, and to try to do some deep breathing exercises. Try to be mindful, stay towards the anxiety, realize it's going to plateau. These are all important things for people who are in the community. And so in terms of me coming out, that's what happened. I experienced rejection from basically everyone, to a certain, you can even say from myself. What I mean by that is, I began to hate what was happening around me, that I didn't necessarily feel regret for coming out. I just felt like, oh man, that feeling was on the outer edge of my feelings, and if given enough time, I probably would feel that. So that's what kind of happened. And this depression that comes from being rejected by your family, your friends, and even your parents, lasted for me about a year and a half, really fully, and before I started talking to people and trying to get help. And I recommend early intervention for people who are feeling depressed, who have the signs and symptoms of depression. For example, lethargy, fatigue, trouble sleeping, trouble concentrating. You know what I mean? It taking a long time for you to go to bed. You feeling sad all the time. You know what I mean? That's what depression is. It's that sadness over a long period of time, intensified. yeah, that's what I want to talk about, depression, and its relation to the LGBTQ2S community. Another thing I noticed is that when you have no one to talk to, the human being is still a person who's naturally social. So I would reach out to online communities, like dating communities online. That was some of my first kind of memories of me accepting my sexuality. Was going online and dating, meeting guys to meet, and that helps immensely because that's where you kind of see who you are. That's where you kind of get judged by people of your culture, you know what I mean? Your own group, which is the LGBT, for me, LGBT, right, 2QS community. And so that's really helpful. Just going to chat rooms like Chat Avenue, Plenty of Fish. Now there's Grindr. Now there's nowadays there's much more visibility towards this. Like, I don't remember celebrating Pride Month when I was, coming out. I don't remember celebrating that at all. So it's still new now. It's very like a new and trendy to be this way. Anyway, that's what I'm saying. Nowadays, there's a lot more resources and accessibility for people who have trouble reconciling their sexuality with, for example, their faith or whatever, their culture. That there's a lot more out there for people. So yeah, I mean, I did read a little bit about depression, just reading up on it more and more, because right, it's always something I'm interested in. I try to listen and kind of learn about mental health on a daily basis. And so, I mean, depression it's not, I mean, it's really, really, really sucky. Like, as I said, for me, I stayed in my room for a long period of time. Literally. I remember when I first got depressed. Like, I remember, perhaps even the choices I made. Where I knew that if I knew that once I made that choice and stuck with that choice, I knew I was going to be depressed for a long period of time. That choice was breaking up with an intimate partner of mine. And I knew as soon as I went through with it, I would feel, I felt, I had these thoughts that I'm going to just waste my days now. This fog descends upon you where you think you're right and everything you're doing is wrong. And that's how I spend my days. Reading, I would read a lot. And I would just sit on my little couch and just read. And my whole schedule would be very low activity. Take a shower, eat something, play some video games on my computer, perhaps spend a little bit of time outside in my garage, and go back to doing it all over again. Watch a hockey game or something, right? So, very low energy. And that's, one of the things that happens to people who, I guess, are depressed. There's this kind of thing that happens, a trauma, right? A divorce, depression, things that happen that are stressors in your life. And I'm going to rattle off some quick statistics, if I haven't really already, and tell you about some great resources online that you can avail yourself of. Like, first off, depression has a 2-to-1 ratio of women over men, statistically, and 15 to 20% of individuals will, experience the criteria of depression and have a MDD, major depressive episode, or major depressive disorder. And so what you want to look for, if you're wondering if your loved one has depression, is look for a change in their person's behavior. okay? And for me, I mentioned obviously, right, me staying at home a lot and leaving, right, reading a lot and this and that. And one more thing I want to mention about depression before I get into like resources is depression is a reoccurrent disorder. So some estimates are upwards of 50% of people will experience another episode of depression if they've already experienced one in their life. And that's true for me as well. I've experienced that first depression, and then there was a death in my family, not my immediate family, but my grandfather died. I experienced another depression, and so it's something that will definitely get again. I mean, 50% chance if you already had it. So. In terms of resources, there are some resources for people who want to learn more about depression. Their websites, and the first one is called the American Psychological Association. So if you search for the search section in the American Psychological Association for apps, there'll actually be a review of mental health apps like Calm, Headspace, right? All these different web apps for mindfulness and mental health, and they'll be rated by the American Psychological Association, so you can see which ones are best for you. CBT obviously is a recommended treatment option for people who have depression, and ideally it takes about 8 to 16 sessions to see results, and you need someone who's qualified in CBT to help you do that, to help you talk about things that you don't want to talk about and whatnot. For me, it was a lot of things, right? And for people, everyone has their own unique things they need to flesh out and deal with, and that's depression, man. I mean, in terms of me coming out, I came out, and it was a horrible feeling for me. I mean, except for a few of my close friends, right? No one really supported me, and it was getting pretty sad at the end, because there's a lot of them who were just wondering why I was getting so depressed as well, and so it wasn't the best of times. Though I do feel much better now, compared to, for example, having a panic attack outside of a mall with two of my friends. I feel much better. This is what happens with medication and therapy and breaking the stigma of talking about these things. You get better. It really is that simple. I mean, it's hard, but it's doable. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's hard, but it's doable. For example, to be mindful, to be anxiety-free and stress-free is doable. It's just hard because you got to be aware of your thoughts and your emotions and your relations to them, and what you were thinking and how it all relates to everything, really. And it can be overwhelming sometimes, but it's not like impossible like how I thought it was before. Before I thought I'm never, I didn't really think that I was doing anything wrong until it got too late, and then I was feeling so depressed. I felt so overwhelmed. I felt like I couldn't do anything. I lost my job. I lost this, right? I lost that, and so yeah, that's depression, man. And I highly, highly recommend that if you come out to a culture that is kind of like not supportive to LGBT2S communities, then you need to find a support mechanism before you come out, or don't come out to those people and only come out to your trusted people, or even don't even do that, because it'll just get too complicated. You know what I mean? Because they might squeal, and then you will have to come out not on your terms. Because from my experience, my coming out experience couldn't have went worse. I mean, it was horrible, and that's because I didn't bear in mind just where my culture doesn't look upon these things. It's disgusting how it actually looks upon these things. I was reading a little bit about Afghani culture and this bache boy culture. It's disgusting what these people do. I mean, I thought it was a joke at first. For example, when I did my Reddit about me being gay, and back then when I was Muslim and trying to reconcile the two, there was a question someone asked me, which is like, so do you fuck goats, or do you like something like that? And I was obviously like saying basically, fuck you, like you're not having a fair appraisal of this religion. And then I was reading a couple days ago about this whole Afghani culture of a lot of all Afghani boys don't really see women in their lifetime except their sisters and their mom. And so they don't see anything except boys. So it's considered okay in their culture to have sex with like teenage boys. I don't want to talk about it because it's so disgusting. And this is what they do. And it's like they have this warped idea of sexuality and sex, and it's, I mean, that's where their culture is coming from. And yes, some of them, there have been reports of village boys performing sexual acts on, at least one I reported on a village boy having a sexual act on an animal. It's disgusting. These things are all so odd. And from my point of view, and yet this is the point of view of the culture I was coming out to, right? Afghani, Pakistani culture, not so much Pakistani. I mean, they're similar. They neighbor each other, right? You can't say no. It's like saying Canadian culture is not influenced by American culture. It obviously is to a certain extent. So, I think that's basically what I want to talk about. That, you know what I mean? Like, that's just weird. That's just, that's not a type of culture I'm, And so, if you're Pakistani, Afghani, you don't want to come out unless you have a support group, and there are support groups out there. For a lot of people, though, it's really lonely. It is. And you just got to deal with that loneliness, because that's sometimes what it is when you're the only gay person in your town, the only, right, trans person, only, whatever, black person, whatever, right? You gotta sometimes, that's your mission, man. You gotta take strength from that, and it's either that or you crumble. I mean, if you're the only, so thank goodness nowadays the cultures are more accepting. All right, man. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I did my exposure, and just hope you guys enjoy it. I mean, these videos will be coming out every week. And that's depression related in terms of like how I came out. I could go more and more. It's just really, really depressing to talk about, because a lot of it was just me not going out. And if I would go out, I would literally just smoke marijuana. I'd ask my brother, hey, do you have any weed? And then he'd buy some weed, he'd sell me some weed. And then, I don't even know where I get money from. I mean, I got this $2,000 tax return, I remember. $2,200 tax return I got. Long ass time ago, when I first got depressed and I was sitting at home, and I was like, oh, this is amazing, and I blew it all on video games I don't even have anymore. They ended up selling. Like, I'm just fucking retarded with money sometimes. Like, when you're depressed, that's what happens. You're not good with money, because you feel hopeless. Anyway, hope this video helped, and hope you guys enjoy it, and remember, guys, stay with it.